It's 10 o'clock. This is Sky News at 10, our top story. Israel launches its long-expected retaliation against Iran as President Biden says he hopes it's the end of the tit-for-tat conflict between the two countries. Businesses brace for a rise in national insurance as the Chancellor tonight says she will deliver a budget for the strivers. New figures out today show more people have crossed the English Channel in small boats so far this year than in the whole of 2023. Plus...
The MP at Runcorn smacking someone on the floor.
Get out of that film.
Yes, I am. Yes, I am. And you won't threaten the MP ever again, will you?
Labour says one of its MPs, Mike Amesbury, will cooperate with any inquiry after police investigate reports of an assault involving the backbencher. Back on top of the table, champions Manchester City beat Southampton to go 2 points clear of Liverpool. And we'll take a first look at tomorrow's front pages in our press preview from 10:30. Good evening. The Middle East and the wider international community has spent this month holding its breath, waiting for an Israeli retaliation to the barrage of missile attacks by Iran on October the 1st. And in the early hours of this morning, finally we saw it, with 4 Iranian soldiers reportedly killed after an Israeli attack on military targets across the country. The authorities there said they believe that number will rise. Iran claims the strikes caused limited damage, with the Foreign Ministry calling the action by the Israel Defense Forces a clear violation of international law. President Biden said tonight he hopes it will now end the tit-for-tat attacks between the two countries. Well, the IDF says the airstrikes were in retaliation for what they called months of continuous attacks from the Iranian regime. Iran's military says the Israeli strikes targeted military bases in Ilam, Khuzestan and Tehran provinces. Our correspondent Adam Parsons reports from Jerusalem.
Israel attacked overnight, targeting 3 locations in Iran for airstrikes. The Iranian air defense stopped some of the missiles, but not all. South of Tehran, this factory was hit. Israel says it has only attacked sites linked to the military.
A short while ago, our planes returned safely after striking military targets in Iran. This was in response to Iran's attacks against the State of Israel in recent months. The retaliatory strike has been completed and its objectives have been achieved.
Israel used a range of fighter jets in this attack, supplied by American companies but piloted by Israelis. Theirs is a formidable air force and a potent threat to their neighbours. It is 3 weeks since Iran attacked Israel with its own barrage of missiles, and the Israelis have been promising a response ever since. Today's attack was overseen by Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister watching as it happened. Iranian state television described these attacks as an escalation by a fake regime and said only limited damage had been caused. The regime in Tehran says it has the right to respond. In the past, Iran might have planned its response by enabling an attack from one of its proxies, Hezbollah in Lebanon or Hamas in Gaza, but both of those are being targeted relentlessly by the Israeli military. So instead, the question, and it's a crucial one for this whole region, is whether Iran will take direct action, and if so, when and how fiercely. The Prime Minister in Samoa with Commonwealth leaders asked for calm.
I am clear that Israel has the right to defend itself against Iranian aggression. I'm equally clear that we need to avoid further regional escalation and urge all sides to show restraint. Iran should not respond. We will continue to work with allies to de-escalate the situation across the region.
But those close to the Iranian regime are striking a more belligerent tone.
It's up to the Israeli regime. They're going to have to take their punishment, and they're going to have to be hurt. But Iran is prepared to do this again and again because Iran easily outguns the regime. Iran can go on wave after wave, with, as I said, with many thousands of missile strikes and many thousands of drone strikes within days.
This is the biggest attack on Iran for decades. Many will feel that it has to respond. This whole region is holding its breath. Adam Parsons, Sky News, Jerusalem.
Well, all month there have been fears that the long-simmering proxy war between Israel and Iran would break out into a full-blown engagement between the two countries. Our security and defence editor, Deborah Haynes, has been examining whether today's attacks make that more or less likely.
With Iran and Israel crossing each other's red lines, the Middle East is in uncharted territory. Here, Iranian missile strikes in April, and again in October, responding to Israeli attacks. Now Israel striking back inside Iran and for the first time publicly confirming the operation.
Definitely it's an historical moment. You talked about the shadow war. Now it's not shadow war anymore. We're in a different ballgame in terms of the relations between Iran and Israel. Looking into the future, I think the chances for future escalation are higher than ever because the fear barrier from both sides have broken.
Israel had been expected to retaliate ever since Iran's missile barrage on the 1st of October. But the choice of targets is key. The Israelis did not go after Iranian nuclear or energy sites, something that would have been far more likely to trigger total war. Instead, the armed forces said their jets, apparently firing from outside Iran's airspace, hit military targets like Iranian missile factories. They also aimed at air defense capabilities, including reportedly in Iraq and Syria. The next big question is how or if Iran will respond.
On the balance of probabilities and the way the Iranians are talking at the moment, I would guess that they're going to absorb this and try and, if you like, cauterize the current direct exchange of conventional activity.
The message from Tehran was to play down the impact of the overnight strikes and portray an image of life carrying on as normal. Yet behind closed doors, this country's leaders must understand it's anything but, with Israel also dealing massive blows to Iran's key allies. This escalating crisis started on the 7th of October last year when Hamas launched its deadly assault on Israel, prompting the Israeli military to retaliate with a devastating war in Gaza. Hezbollah then started attacking Israel in the north, and now this country finds itself fighting on 7 fronts across the region, with Iran the prime foe and the need to restore deterrence paramount. But with the civilian death toll in Gaza and Lebanon mounting, this country is also under pressure from its allies to prioritise peace over endless war.
And Deborah joins us live now from Tel Aviv. Deborah, President Biden expressing hope that this is the end of the tit-for-tat strikes between Israel and Iran. But what chance of those hopes actually being realised?
Well, the choice of military targets rather than Iranian nuclear sites or oil sites is a clear signal from Israel of a desire to de-escalate. It could also be a sign of successful US diplomatic pressure. The United States has made clear that it would not have supported strikes by Israel against Iranian nuclear facilities. And analysts have speculated that the provision in recent days by the US of a sophisticated THAAD missile defense system to Israel might have been given on the condition that any Israeli response would be limited. For Iran, it faces a decision now. Does it hit back harder, escalating further? Does it absorb the strike, the words that have been coming out of the regime today, playing down the impact? Or does it decide that it does have to strike back, but maybe reduce the number of missiles to a lower level than was fired towards Israel on the 1st of October? Again, a signal of a desire to de-escalate. But make no mistake, this crisis is by no means over. These two countries still regard each other as arch foes, and with these new red lines crossed, it means the next time there is a flashpoint, there is a crisis, there is then a much greater possibility of tensions, of conflict escalating into all-out war.
Deborah, thank you. Businesses say the upcoming budget could be a kick in the teeth as the Chancellor turns to them to fill a multi-billion-pound hole in the public finances. Rachel Reeves is set to increase the amount employers pay in national insurance in what's expected to be the largest tax rise in the red box. But tonight, she struck a more optimistic note, writing that her budget will be aimed at helping what she called the strivers. Sky's political correspondent Tamara Cohen has the details.
Businesses are bracing themselves for a tax raid as the Chancellor makes clear she needs to find billions of pounds for public services.
There we go, got wildfire calzone.
The hospitality sector, where staff costs eat up a lot of the bottom line, say they will struggle.
We want to employ, like lots of people. I think it's going to maybe, we're not going to recruit as hard, Lots of other businesses were probably looking for some sort of, relief, whether it is a, tax break or a reduction in, VAT, but it just seems like another, kick in the teeth, really.
At the Commonwealth Summit across the world, Keir Starmer has faced many questions about a budget which insiders know could define this government.
What we're doing is two things in the budget. The first is fixing the foundations, which is dealing with the inheritance that we've got, including the £22 billion black hole. We have to deal with that. In the past, for the last 14 years, leaders have walked past those problems, created fictions, and I'm not prepared to do that.
Government sources have been as clear as they can be that national insurance for employers is going up because the NHS needs more money. It could raise as much as £20 billion, the biggest revenue raiser of the budget, hence the need to reassure the markets. But it's not the only tax rise in the Chancellor's sights. Labour came in promising not to raise income tax, national insurance or VAT for working people. Cabinet ministers have insisted national insurance paid by employers is not included in that. The Chancellor is widely expected to freeze the thresholds at which people pay income tax for years to come. And inheritance tax, capital gains and pension reliefs are reported to be in her sights.
Bigger businesses can handle some of this, smaller businesses can't. So that's why we've got to make sure we protect those micro businesses, those little craft businesses in the high street. We all want to ensure that we've got a thriving high street, thriving economy, and that we help people get back into work.
The government are trying to make positive announcements about what they will do, a funding stream for affordable housing. But many businesses fear the glass still looks half full. Tamara Cohen, Sky News, Westminster.
And tune in tomorrow morning from 8:30 a.m. when Trevor Phillips will be joined by the Education Secretary, Bridget Phillipson, the Deputy Leader of Reform UK, Richard Tice, the former Governor of the Bank of England, Mervyn King, as well as the Director of the Institute for Fiscal Studies, Paul Johnson. Well, Tamara joins me now live from Downing Street. And Tamara, all the talk over the past few days has been about potential losers from this budget. What do we know about those who are set to gain?
Well, we've got some new information tonight. Rachel Reeves is writing in The Sun newspaper, and she says this will be a budget for the strivers. Remember them? George Osborne used to talk about them a lot. Well, they're back, but they sound rather different. The strivers Rachel Reeves has identified are three groups of people. Those stuck on NHS waiting lists, waiting for treatment. And I understand she's going to be finding £10 billion to put into cutting NHS waiting lists. Children in crumbling classrooms classrooms. There will be over £1 billion to fix those. And she says people who graft every day and can't afford to own their own homes. There will be money for affordable housing. I understand there's also going to be a boost for those on carers allowance, a lift in the earnings threshold, and a change to universal credit, which will be branded as an anti-poverty measure. I think the question for Wednesday, Rachel Reeves is going to be talking a lot about short-term pain and insisting this is not a return to austerity, but the prospect of investment and fixing public services are on the horizon. The question, though, is whether the positive messages about those sunny uplands just out of reach can cut through the painful messages about raising taxes, because those will not just be for 1 year, they'll go on for some time.
We shall see tomorrow. Thank you. And of course, we'll bring you full coverage of Rachel Reeves' first budget as it happens next week. That's coming up on Wednesday from 10 a.m. More people crossed the English Channel in small boats this year so far than in the whole of 2023. 424 people crossed the Channel yesterday, taking the total this year to nearly 30,000, according to Home Office figures. Let's take a look at what's happened over the past few years. In 2021, 28,395 people took the journey across the Channel in small boats. In 2022, that figure rose to 45,728 people. Last year, 29,437 made the journey. And so far this year, as we've been reporting, 29,578 people have travelled in small boats across the Channel. Adele Robinson reports.
Another day, another rescue. This time, at least 60 migrants, including women and children, picked up by the UK Border Force in the Channel. More have now crossed this year in small boats than the whole of 2023. Proof again, government policies are yet to deter them.
A lot of families, a lot of children, women and children. There's a lot of sort of women and children's products here.
Helping migrants is charity worker Kay, and surprised by the latest figure of 29,500 crossing this year.
It's just going to keep getting worse. You know, they're still talking about deterrence. We had hope when we got the new Labour government that they would start taking safe and legal routes seriously and actually start talking about it as a viable option, but they still haven't, you know.
The number of migrant deaths in 2024 in the Channel is thought to be the highest yet, making this route more deadly than ever.
And what the latest figures remind us is that despite spending hundreds of millions of pounds on policies like the now scrapped Rwanda plan, for example, nothing has yet made a tangible difference.
Labour MP for Dover Mike Tapp says his party's plan to crack down on people smugglers will take time.
Nothing is working, is it?
Well, look, we made it really clear before the general election that there is no magic wand to wave on this. So we've put in place already in just a few months the Border Security Command. That brings in the likes of MI5, the finest intelligence services in the world, and that brings in counter-terror powers. We are going to treat smuggling gangs like we do terrorists, but of course it takes time to have an impact.
But the Conservatives say the fact 16,000 more have crossed in small boats since Labour got elected should serve as a reality check for the government. People in Dover, though, aren't convinced anything will work.
Must be costing the country millions.
They've got to go somewhere, though.
They've got to, yes, yeah, that's true. So, I mean, we can't stop them. I mean, 900 came over the other night, 900 came over last weekend.
I think at the end of the day, I think they will make that journey whatever.
Yeah.
But I just think it's really sad when you see sort of especially women and children who, like, especially the kids don't have a choice. They're getting on that boat because their parents are.
Each person much more than just a statistic. But their arrival here marks one of the biggest political challenges to face government in recent years. Adele Robinson, Sky News.
A Labour MP has issued a statement saying he was involved in an incident where he felt threatened and is now cooperating with police inquiries. Video of the incident circulating online appears to show Mike Asbury, the MP for Runcorn and Helsby, standing over a man lying on the ground. Mr Amesbury found an unlikely ally this evening with the former Conservative chair, Richard Holden, urging people to withhold judgment until the full story emerged. Charlotte Leeming reports.
The MP at Runcorn smacking someone on the floor.
Caught on camera, the Labour MP Mike Amesbury involved in an altercation that's now under police investigation, pointing and arguing with a man on the floor. The footage was filmed in the early hours of Saturday morning in the town of Frodsham in Cheshire. The incident happened in public when people were making their way home from their nights out, and it's now been widely shared online. The MP for Runcorn and Helsby said in a statement, "Last night I was involved in an incident that took place after I felt threatened on the street following an evening out with friends. This morning I contacted Cheshire Police myself to report what happened during this incident. I will not be making further public comment, but will of course cooperate with any inquiries if required by Cheshire Police." The incident happened outside this taxi firm, and we don't yet know the full details leading up to this heated argument that has been captured on camera. But Cheshire Police have told us they were called by someone who said they'd been assaulted by a man at 2:48 a.m, and they say their inquiries are ongoing. Labour said, "We are aware of an incident that took place last night. We understand that Mike Amesbury MP approached Cheshire Police to report what happened this morning himself, and that he will cooperate with any inquiries they have."
He's the local MP, Jono.
The video of this altercation will now form part of this investigation. It was recorded by a man called Jono, who told Sky News it wasn't nice to see, and he filmed it because it looked so serious. But it's now up to police to look into the full circumstances of this heated exchange between a Member of Parliament and a member of the public. Charlotte Leeming, Sky News, Frodsham.
Georgia's ruling party is heading towards victory in parliamentary elections for the former Soviet Republic. The contest has been seen as potentially pivotal in deciding whether the country will move closer to the European Union or Moscow. Our international correspondent John Sparks has sent this report from the Georgian capital, Tbilisi.
The streets of the Georgian capital here playing host to the signs of Election Day celebrations. And at the headquarters of the ruling party, Georgian Dream, the festivities were in full swing. The Election Commission poised to declare them victors in the parliamentary vote. We met the leader of Georgian Dream, Bidzina Ivanishvili, earlier in the day as he prepared to cast his vote alongside a phalanx of burly bodyguards. Georgia's stability and security are his personal priorities, he says, a commitment that he extends to himself.
Please.
We couldn't film him cast his vote, but in a chaotic scrum that followed, he told the media that the opposition is run by foreign agents.
We either choose a government that serves the people and cares about us, or we choose the agents of foreign countries who fulfill the orders of another country.
Under Mr. Ivanishvili, the government is now closely aligned with Russia, and he's pledged to ban all pro-Western political groups.
Why are you trying to ban the opposition parties? Can you tell us why you're trying to do that?
Well, we were manhandled out of there by his men. Ivanishvili, not an individual who is prepared to be approached by journalists, that is clear. The political opposition is led by this woman, who happens to be Georgia's president.
Are you confident, Madam President?
Yes.
Why is that?
Because it's Georgia.
Her name is Salome Zorabishvili. A French émigré, she promises to restart negotiations to join the European Union. And she's managed to unite the country's fractious opposition.
Tonight, there will be a victory, and that victory will be that of Georgia. Of all of Georgia, there will be people that will be victorious, but nobody will lose tonight. Thank you very much.
If the pro-European graffiti in Tbilisi is anything to go by, the election should have gone the opposition's way. And just about everyone we spoke to in the capital said they were voting for change.
Historically, we have been always attached to Europe, and culturally as well, and we always felt closer to this region, and we think, young people, that our future is in Europe.
The opposition has accused the government of vote rigging. This a blatant example of ballot box stuffing filmed earlier. Yet the pro-EU parties have lost this poll, a stunning defeat to a government that's already spent 12 years in power. John Sparks, Sky News in Tbilisi.
The US presidential election continues to build to a crescendo. In Kalamazoo, Michigan, Kamala Harris has brought out another big name to support her. And after Bruce Springsteen and Beyoncé in successive nights, today it's the turn of a political heavyweight, with the former First Lady Michelle Obama joining Harris on stage. She's still speaking. Let's bring you a flavour of what she's been saying.
That's because Kamala Harris is a grown-up. And Lord knows we need a grown-up in the White House. Someone with the maturity and fresh ideas to keep moving our country forward. Kamala.
Well, the clock is ticking down to that crucial election day. You can get full coverage of the build-up here on Sky News. Now, the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa has ended with a call for discussions on reparations for the harm caused by the slave trade. The UK government has repeatedly ruled out offering reparations or an apology for the country's historical involvement in the trade. But the final communiqué from the summit said that the leaders had agreed that the time has come for a meaningful, truthful and respectful conversation towards forging a common future based on equity. The King returned from the meeting last night, and tonight Buckingham Palace has confirmed that the monarch, fresh from his trip to the South Pacific, will plan to return to regular overseas trips next year. He suspended duties following his cancer diagnosis earlier this year, and the foreign travel will have to be sanctioned by his doctors. Let's return to the upcoming budget now, and Sky News has seen a warning to the Treasury from house builders that Labour's new homes target can't be met without significant investment in social housing. Analysis by our data and forensics team shows the proportion of social housing has been shrinking, and new homes are often unaffordable and away from places with the most demand. Becky Johnson reports.
With the UK in the grip of a housing crisis, the government has pledged to build 1.5 million new homes. But ahead of the budget, Sky News has seen a warning to the Treasury from experts that the target can't be met without significant investment in social housing. Nurse Esther works a second job and claims universal credit to rent a one-bedroom flat. She's been waiting for a council house here in Bristol since her daughter Annabelle was born 4 years ago.
They need to be housing that are just affordable for people like me. You can't just keep, bring the rent up and up and up. I mean, who's going to be able to afford to live in Bristol in the next 10 years?
More than 20,000 people are waiting for a council house in this city alone, one of the longest waiting lists in the country. Many are stuck in temporary accommodation. This cramped room in a bedsit is all the council can offer Ed, who's recovering from mental illness and addiction.
If you haven't got the ability to get up and make yourself known and try and ask for help from someone or a landlord or, you're stuck. It's as simple as that.
Private rent here in Bristol is the most expensive outside of London, and the average resident needs more than 9 times their salary to buy a house. Many are simply priced out. A big boost for affordable house building is expected in the budget, but the National Housing Federation says the Chancellor will need to go much further and commit to over £4.5 billion a year in order to tackle the serious shortage of housing for those who need it most. Sky analysis shows the extra money could eventually reduce spending on housing benefits for those struggling. The trend over recent decades of less investment in affordable house building, here in blue, has seen benefit spending, seen in brown, surge. The proportion of social houses, here in yellow, has been shrinking. This was 2010. Since then, it's fallen by almost 7% across England. In Bristol, it's down by closer to 9%. There are new houses being built here, but these £400,000 homes are out of reach for people like Esther and Ed. This estate agent sees the need for more cheaper housing.
Affordability is key. I think given the recent changes in interest rates and also since Help to Buy came to an end, there's definitely been an element of young purchasers, first-time buyers looking to buy their first property that have simply just haven't been able to get on the ladder.
Building targets are welcome here, but only the right type of housing will solve the crisis faced by those most desperate for help. Becky Johnson, Sky News, Bristol.
Time now to get all the very latest sports news with Rahul.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality. Getting more people more active. Live life with Vitality.
The first real footballing memory was Arsenal winning the double and my dad taking us to Highbury Corner to go and watch us do the parade. I can almost still feel myself like as a small child and my dad's hand being like in front of my eye and like just trying to hold on to my dad's hand so that we can walk through.
Yeah.
And it's so weird that it does that. Do you know what I mean? And but it's an amazing thing. My first shirt was the Arsenal goalkeeping shirt in '98, and I had Alex Manninger on the back.
Why Alex Manninger?
I don't know. I was always a fan of like the rogue player. For some reason, I always used to wear that. Then it was a Overmars 11 shirt, JVC, yellow away top, the yellow one. Yeah, so that home and away kit in 1998 was my first kits. Ronaldo. El Fenomeno Ronaldo, not Cristiano.
The one that you've got a tattoo of.
The one that I've got a tattoo of. Yeah, I think I love Thierry. Love Thierry.
Yeah, I was surprised you didn't pick an Arsenal player.
Yeah.
But
if I was to look at the first time I saw football and went, wow. There's two moments in my head. One is Michael Owen scoring against Argentina. But consistently, Ronaldo. And then that moment when he joined the Galacticos, ridiculous. I always think a favourite goal has to be one that you've witnessed. The Jude Bellingham goal. That for me was, I've never seen that. I realised I'd never witnessed a bicycle kick resigned to defeat. And then the balls come in. And again, it's one of those where you're like, what have I just watched? All of a sudden, the ball's in the net. And I'm celebrating. And then I have to go back and remember what I actually saw.
This Sky News Sports Bulletin is brought to you by Vitality.
Well, that was Sky News at 10. Coming up, we'll take a first look at tomorrow's newspapers in the press preview. Tonight, we're joined by political journalist and broadcaster Theo Usherwood and former Conservative Special Advisor Anita Boateng. Amongst the stories we'll be discussing, this on the front of The Observer, looking ahead to the budget. Their headline reads, "My budget will match greatest economic moments in Labour's history." Bold. We'll be right back. Do stay with us.
Weeknights on Sky News.
This is your chance. Tell people. Welcome to the Politics Hub.
Our police force has apologised. If you want to find out about Grimsby, you come to the docks.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Are you not concerned that that could lead to all-out war?
Hello there, good evening. There are fears of an upsurge in violence. What's at stake here?
You are watching the press preview, a first look at the front pages as they arrive.
They pushed the protesters further back here. There's around 200 or 300 still remaining.
I'm Dan Whitehead and I'm Sky News' West of England correspondent.
This van goes onto the streets of Plymouth 7 days a week, 365 days a year.
These facilities at the moment are a lifesaver. It's all we've got.
From fishing communities to bustling cities, we spend every day reporting from across the region.
I'm going to have nowhere to live for about 3 or 4 months.
They are coming from the epicentre of what is now a global health pandemic. We were seeing and speaking to young women who were selling themselves right on the high street. Before Brexit, these oysters were being exported to the EU, but the trade stopped overnight.
What's your feeling about the future then?
Blake, you'll be finished, I don't know.
This nation under God shall have a new birth of freedom.
Drop one bomb.
Not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
Tear down this wall.
Our very freedom came under attack.
We are the change that we seek.
It's been the honor of my life to serve as your president.
Make America great again.
This is a country of possibilities.
There have been 46 presidents of the United States. Who will be next? Get the full story first on Sky News.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with political journalist and broadcaster Theo Usherwood and former Conservative Special Advisor Anita Boateng. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Observer looks ahead to next week's budget, with the Chancellor herself predicting that it will match the greatest economic moments in Labour's history. But the Mail on Sunday says Sir Keir Starmer is under fire for what it describes as a double lie on tax, after pledging the budget wouldn't be a war on Middle Britain or break Labour's manifesto promises. The Telegraph says that thousands of businesses are being closed down by their owners ahead of the budget because of fears it will amount to a huge corporate tax raid. The Times speaks to the daughter of murdered MP David Amess about what she says were failings in the government's de-radicalisation programme that allowed a terrorist free to kill her father. The Sunday People pictures the King with news that he's going to be very busy with a big programme of official tours and duties next year, despite his recent cancer treatment. The King bounces back. That's the main headline in the Express. And finally, The Star leads with a pun-laden story about England footballer Jared Bowen and his vasectomy, or rather, lack of it. A reminder that by scanning the QR code you'll see on screen during the programme, you can check out the front pages of tomorrow's newspapers while you watch us. And we are joined tonight by Theo Usherwood and Anita Boateng. Welcome to both of you. Let's start with the Mail. And they're accusing the Prime Minister of being a liar, nay, a double liar there.
Yes, the Mail on Sunday is, of course, this is their budget preview, and they've gone in on Keir Starmer, in their view, telling a double lie by saying that he was not going to wage war on Middle Britain. And then, of course, secondly, that promise not to increase VAT, national insurance or income tax, and it's widely expected that national insurance contributions for employers is going to be increased, and then the thresholds at which potentially employers start paying national insurance contributions could be reduced as well, as part of an effort to raise around £15 billion to fill that black hole of £40 billion that the Chancellor is looking to raise. And this is, of course, if you go back to the election manifesto, Keir Starmer was adamant that he wasn't going to increase taxes on working people, and not increasing national insurance was part of that, though he never made, and Rachel Reeves never made, a differentiation between employers' contributions and those contributions made by employees. But this week we've heard a bit more, haven't we, from both Keir Starmer and the Chancellor about their definition of a working person, and it's somebody who goes out to work rather than who has the benefit of an income, whether it be from rent because they own a house, they're a landlord, or they have dividends from shares.
But those sorts of people go out to work as well.
They go out to work as well. Many of course, small business people, 5 million of them up and down the country, would consider themselves to be working people, and they are not earning a huge amount of money. And that's where I think the Prime Minister and the Chancellor, especially on Wednesday, are going to find themselves in some hot water.
Anita, is the Prime Minister breaking manifesto promises?
Well, funny enough, I think that the national insurance thing is a sort of sleight of hand that kind of speaks to, I would say, sort of Starmer and Reeves sticking to maybe the letter but not the spirit of what they were saying. But I think more importantly, the tax thresholds are a problem. So there's this piece in The Observer, but it's also kind of referenced in the Mail, that really, if you're freezing the income tax thresholds, then everyone is paying more tax for what they earn. And it's very hard to say that literally anyone that pays income tax isn't therefore being taxed more, and therefore that you are not taxing working people. And I think that this will end up being a problem because fiscal, tax and fiscal drag are really, really important things, and one of the reasons why so many people feel they have a lot less money in their pockets. And that feels like it's going to be a particular kind of pinch point for the government. And last year, in The Observer, they had this piece saying last year that Reeves called freezing the tax thresholds picking the pockets of working people. So if it's picking the pockets of working people when the Conservatives do it, it might be picking the pockets of working people when Labour does it.
When is it not picking the pockets? Let's have a look at The Observer, and very bold statement from Rachel Reeves. My budget will match greatest economic moments in Labour's history. And further in the article, she says, in 1945, we rebuilt after the war. In 1964, we rebuilt with the white heat of technology. And in 1997, we rebuilt our public services. We need to do all of that now. Very, very bold claim.
You usually do it the other way around, and you usually you don't set out before a budget. It can be quite high risk that you go in there and you say how amazing it's going to be, and this bold moment that Rachel Reeves talks about, and then of course Wednesday could come along, it could be a complete disaster, and it all unravels by the end of the week. Perhaps I would have thought they would have perhaps done it the other way around to urge caution, and then when it comes to Wednesday, do the big announcements and say, well, actually, maybe they've got some better forecasts up their sleeve that they can point to, rather than do it this particular way, because it feels a little bit like Pride Before a Fall, by saying how amazing it's going to be, and then wouldn't it be better just to let the public be the judge of that?
But she must be supremely confident to say that today.
Well, this is the interesting thing, right? Why did the Labour government, Labour Party get elected in July? You could argue it was really to rebuild public services, or certainly to see more investment in public services. But some of the other conversations and chatter we've heard around this budget, such as the complaints, let's call them, being raised by the likes of Angela Rayner and Shabana and Mahmood about the amount of money they're being asked to effectively cut, reduce their budgets, the amount of uplift they are not seeing suggests that this phrase, we're not going to return to Tory austerity, is talking about the Tory bit of that austerity and not the austerity bit of that austerity, right? So there is a real risk here that if she really talks about rebuilding public services, that the expectation is going to be lots and lots of public investment. Now, I almost don't think it matters what she says, because I do think the public are expecting much more investment in critical public services. And so this ambition, the fact that she is putting this front and centre, when it feels to me as though they're walking a tightrope in terms of wanting to get enough tax and enough flex in borrowing to deliver massive influxes of money into the public services, says to me that maybe she thinks the budget's going to be a lot better than expected, but I suspect that what she's doing is slightly more than what Theo's saying, which is ramping up the rhetoric in a way that may not be helpful for her in the medium term.
The other danger to this, and I completely agree with what Nisa said, but the other danger to this is that, and talking about walking the tightrope, is that actually Rachel Reeves is seen to be profligate with public money, and actually if she acquiesces to Shabana Mahmood or Angela Rayner in these departments, that you might expect to see some spending restraint, actually get more money. We already know that Angela Rayner is getting an extra £1 billion for social housing, and that money's been put into public services. OK, but, there was a huge, they worked incredibly hard, Rachel Reeves and Keir Starmer, during the general election to impress upon the public that they could be trusted with the public finances, that this wasn't same old Labour with high tax and high spend. And yet I think there is and I think this is being felt in Number 10, a real feeling, a danger. The danger sign is actually, and what they don't want to fall into the trap is actually that it is the same old Labour Party where they do have high taxes and high spending priorities.
And one final thing, but the other thing that we seem to be forgetting in this conversation a little bit is the growth question, because that is really what this government said their mission was. And there is a risk that if the entire budget becomes about how much are you taxing working people and how much are you spending on public services, the idea that this is supposed to be the beginning of a new way of thinking about and driving growth may very well get lost. And that is supposed to be the defining mission of this government.
And Theo, the Telegraph looking at the fact that thousands of businesses are closing ahead of the budget. Economists fear it will amount to one of the biggest corporate tax raids of the modern era.
Yes, and I think this is an important story that the Telegraph's picked up. They've taken some figures, notices which are filed to the Gazette that more than 1,600 company directors have chosen to wind down their businesses this month, and that says the Telegraph Sunday Telegraph is reporting that's by far the highest number of closures all year and more than double the amount for last October. And the Labour Party, has taken this approach with huge levels of public sector investment, which we can understand. But actually, in terms of going back to Anita's point about economic growth, actually it is, we will get economic growth if we get businesses deciding actually to set up for people to take those risks, to go out there to start a business, whether it's a coffee shop or somebody doing some coding from their bedroom and trying to expand, whatever that might be, but actually deciding to take those risks. But going by these figures that the Sunday Telegraph has revealed, that it appears to be going in the opposite direction. And Keir Starmer during the general election was absolutely adamant. He wasn't going to try and address the question of dealing with the public finances by increasing taxes. His argument was that you get economic growth, therefore you get increased tax receipts into the Treasury, which you can then spend on public services. You get around £30 billion for a 0.5% uplift in GDP. So the question to Anita, where is that?
Anita, we've only got about 20 seconds or so left, but I just wanted to get the Sunday Times story with Netanyahu being quoted saying that the US does not tell us what to do, and that's following the strike this morning on Iran.
Yes, and I was sitting in the studio talking about when the strike happened on the 1st of October, that was Iran striking Israel and what the responses might be. And at the time, there was some speculation that Israel would in fact look to have strikes not just on nuclear facilities, not just on military targets, but also potentially on things like nuclear facilities, which would be incredibly alarmist. And the US being quite robust in saying, please do not do that. And so the fact that in this case, we found out today that Israel decided not to strike anything other than military targets is being seen as a sign that Netanyahu has acquiesced to the view of the US. He has pushed back quite robustly and said that is not what's happened. But nevertheless, we're not seeing potentially some kind of escalation that may have resulted from them being more robust in their targeting.
Indeed. Anita and Theo, thank you very much for the moment. We're going to take a break. Coming up, the daughter of murdered MP David Amess has told The Times that failings in the government's de-radicalisation programme allowed a terrorist free to kill her father. To stay with us for more on that and other stories.
We arrive. A secret hospital hidden in the Myanmar jungle, treating the victims of this bloody war. This is Myanmar today. Its military rulers don't want the world to see, but we have.
I fight for my own future. I fight for my generation's future.
This is an actual crime.
They don't care for that.
Myanmar army is only a couple of kilometers away.
So this is a major humanitarian disaster.
Mayhem in the Middle East, rippling in America's West.
Get back! Get back!
The resolve of these protesters is now being seriously tested. I saw police being being forced or pushing young men and women to the ground as they make almost 100 arrests.
None of this is a peaceful protest.
I'm Martha Kellner and I'm Sky's US correspondent based here in Los Angeles. How are you feeling?
I am angry.
It is an anti-woman agenda. Sky News, get the full story first. Will the cold affect your voters?
Well, we have a lot of tremendous support, but it's nasty out there.
Can you beat Donald Trump, Governor? President Biden, do you trust President Xi? President Biden says that this meeting went well. He said real progress was made on a whole host of issues. Will your candidates win?
I hope so. I think they will. I think they're great candidates.
There's no doubt that Kamala Harris and her team are harnessing the power of social media. Do you think Kamala is brat?
Kamala's brat.
Were you scared?
Yeah, we were scared. It was terrible. Strong wind, building tearing down.
As them say, our God works, so we can't do nothing.
The people here know that worse storms may well be on their way. Free, wherever you get your news.
Excited.
I've had severe nightmares of these people coming in and just taking me in the middle of the night.
Ghislaine Maxwell has pleaded not guilty to all 6 charges against her. Mum, how are you feeling today?
Jeffrey said, you answer to Ghislaine, you just don't cross her.
The most significant day of this conflict.
They keep telling us that they want aid.
And this is what's left of it.
Why only in America? People want their country to work.
Just want a job in a normal life.
Why are these homes empty?
I want you to be honest with people.
That has happened within minutes.
Sky News, the full story first. Free wherever you get your news.
I say, bring it on.
With America divided and tensions running high, get ready for an election like no other.
Join our teams as we follow the campaign trail as America decides.
We will win, win, win.
Get closer to the action this US election with full reaction and analysis.
Sky News, the full story first.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, political journalist and broadcaster Theo Usherwood and former Conservative Special Advisor Anita Boateng. Let's start by having a look at the front page of the Sunday Times. The headline there, we were catastrophically failed. This is Katie Amos, the daughter of David Amos, who was killed by a terrorist, and she's revealing that the prevent admin error left a terrorist free to murder the MP. So their de-radicalisation programme failed, essentially, Theo.
Yes, this is an incredible story that's come out on the front page of the Sunday Times, and they're leading with it, of Katie Amos saying that this is the daughter of David Amos, saying that she wants a public inquest to examine exactly how the Home Office and the police acted before her father died. And it goes back to Harvey Ali, who, of course, was convicted of Sir David's murder. And back in 2014, he was referred by one of his teachers to the Prevent scheme, which, of course, aims to de-radicalise those that are brought under its auspices. But there was only one meeting, and, of course, he went on to conduct that lone wolf attack in 2021 at Sir David's constituency office in the name of Islamic State. And Katie says the police told us Prevent didn't follow him due to an admin error. I think this story is going to cause problems for the Home Office. I would just say, and of course you can't put the two together, but I was at the briefing, the annual briefing with Sir Ken McCullum, the Director General of MI5, back at the beginning of the month, and he was making the point to journalists there that it's increasingly difficult for his officers, for his spies to pick out these lone wolf attacks. They're a huge number that they have to go through, and they're always trying to find the one that, is that just somebody messing about in their bedroom, online, going into the dark web? And how do you then find the one that goes on to commit such an appalling act of terrorism? It's a frightfully difficult job that MI5 and other security services have. But of course, this will need to be, you can't help but feel for Katie Amos and the rest of the Amos family.
Indeed. Anita, let's just turn to much happier story. Front page of the Sunday People. The King back to full duties, following on from his successful tour in Samoa.
Yes, this is lovely. I mean, I think there's some briefing from officials in the palace saying that the king has felt much kind of invigorated, his spirits, his mood and his recovery, and it's been the kind of perfect tonic. And as we all know, the king actually paused his cancer treatment to go on this tour, and he seems to have obviously found it, wonderfully the perfect tonic. And so there is a hope that the king is going to resume twice-yearly overseas trips with the Queen from next year. So that's quite a considerable amount of travel, and delighted to hear that, and hopefully he can continue his treatment and then go on and continue to be our king abroad.
Seemingly back to normal. Anita,
back in action.
Thank you very much for taking us through the papers. Thank you. Let's take a look at the weather for you now. Well, Sunday's looking very bright at first, but some more wet and windy weather will be affecting many places by the end of the day. First thing in the morning, it'll be chilly with some frost in some sheltered spots in the north. It'll also be bright for most of us with some decent sunshine to enjoy. Things will turn increasingly cloudy in the west as some wet and windy weather spreads in from the Atlantic. The rain will turn heavy over the western parts of Ireland during the morning. During the afternoon, the wind and rain will spread across much of Scotland, and by evening it will affect northwest England and North Wales. The rest of England and Wales should enjoy a bright and sunny day. Coming up next on Sky News at 11, Israel launches its long-expected retaliation against Iran as President Biden says he hopes it's the end of the tit-for-tat conflict between the two countries.
There's always more to the news than a headline. We want to discover, to delve a little deeper, to find out what's really going on. Explanation, analysis, the people at the heart of every story. I'm Neil Patterson, and this is the Sky News Daily Podcast. So, by the end, we'll hopefully all understand what's going on in the world just that little better. Available wherever you get your podcasts.
We've got your Sunday mornings covered. From the front page and the sounds of the streets to the voices of the people who make the major calls and big picture politics beyond Westminster. We'll put you at the heart of our story. A new start to Sunday.
I'm ready. Are you?
Join me, Trevor Phillips, Sunday mornings on Sky News.